The Alpha's voice cut through the ceremonial hall like a blade through silk. I reject you. 3 words. Simple. Final. Delivered without hesitation before 200 witnesses whose eyes burned with curiosity and barely concealed satisfaction. She stood at the center of the marble floor, hand still extended from where he had dropped it moments before. The mate bond that had flared to life between them now twisted in her chest like broken glass, each shard cutting deeper as his rejection severed what the moon had woven. You are human, he continued, his tone devoid of inflection. Weak. Powerless. The royal bloodline cannot be diluted by mortal frailty. The council has spoken. I have chosen another. Gasps rippled through the assembly, but no one moved to defend her. Why would they? She was nothing, a healer's apprentice pulled from obscurity by fate's cruel joke, thrust into a bond she never asked for with an alpha who looked at her now as if she were a stain on his ancestral legacy. The woman beside him, draped in ceremonial silks and crowned with silver, smiled. His true choice. Pure-blooded. Perfect. She should have felt humiliation. She should have crumbled under the weight of their stares, under the crushing pressure of his rejection radiating through the bond like poison. Instead, something else stirred beneath her ribs. Something old. Something that whispered in a voice not entirely her own, they do not know what you are. Her fingers trembled, not with weakness, but with restraint. For just a heartbeat, the candles lining the hall flickered. The temperature dropped enough for breath to mist in the air. Every wolf in the room tensed, instinct prickling at their napes. Then it was gone. She lifted her chin, meeting the Alpha's cold gaze with eyes that no longer begged for mercy. As you wish, Alpha, she said quietly. But you will remember this moment. He frowned, uncertain for the first time. She turned and walked toward the doors, each step measured. Deliberate. The crowd parted without realizing they were moving, something ancient in their blood recognizing a presence they could not name. The doors closed behind her with a resonant boom. None of them knew. Not yet. But soon, the Alpha King would learn exactly what he had cast aside. The Crescent Moon Pack had ruled the Northern Territories for 3 centuries, their bloodline unbroken, their authority absolute. Pack law was sacred, written in the blood of ancestors and enforced without exception. Strength determined hierarchy. Lineage determined worth. And mates, when chosen by the moon herself, were meant to elevate the Alpha's power, never diminish it. She had known this long before the bond snapped into place. Born to a human mother who died in childbirth and raised by a traveling healer who asked no questions, she had grown up on the edges of wolf society. Tolerated because her mentor's skills were invaluable, ignored because she bore no scent, no shift, no sign of the beast that marked true wolves. She learned to make herself useful. To mix tonics that eased pain, to stitch wounds that would have festered, to sit vigil over fevered pups while their parents hunted. She learned to be invisible. Until the night of the Alpha's ascension ceremony, when the moon hung full and heavy, and the bond slammed into her chest like a fist. She had looked across the crowded courtyard and met his eyes, silver, cold, calculating, and felt the world tilt. He had felt it too. She saw the recognition flash across his face, followed immediately by something darker. Disgust. The council convened within the hour. She was summoned, examined, questioned. They tested her blood, searched for any trace of wolf heritage, found nothing. The healers declared her fully human. The council declared her unworthy. And the Alpha, bound by duty to a pack that demanded perfection, made his choice. He rejected her publicly to ensure no wolf would question his authority. What none of them knew, what even she had not fully understood, was that her mentor had not found her by accident. The old healer had been searching. Waiting. Guarding a secret that had been buried for 20 years beneath layers of suppression spells and false identities. Her mother had not been human. Her father had not been a wandering merchant. And the blood running through her veins carried a legacy that predated the Crescent Moon Pack by 1,000 years. The moon had not made a mistake. She had made a test. And the Alpha King had failed. The exile was not official. It did not need to be. Within 3 days of the rejection, her small cottage on the healer's grounds was burned. Not by accident, by decree. The council claimed the structure was unsafe, that it posed a risk to the pack's resources. No one questioned the timing. She stood at the edge of the clearing and watched the flames consume everything she had built. Her herbs, her tools, her books, all of it reduced to smoke and ash. The wolves who set the fire would not meet her eyes. Shame, perhaps. Or fear that association with her would taint them by proxy. Her mentor was gone. Disappeared the night of the rejection without explanation, without farewell. At the time, she had felt abandoned. Now, standing alone as the fire roared, she wondered if the old healer had known this was coming. If leaving had been protection, not betrayal. The Alpha did not come. Why would he? The bond was severed, the connection dissolved by his will and the moon's reluctant release. He had already moved forward, his chosen mate draped across his arm at every public gathering, her pure bloodline celebrated as the pack's salvation. She had 48 hours to leave Packlands. No provisions were offered. No safe passage guaranteed. The message was clear: disappear, or be disappeared. She left at dawn, carrying only what fit in a worn leather satchel. Clothes. A single knife. A vial of suppressant tonic she no longer understood the purpose of. Her mentor had insisted she drink it weekly, but never explained why. The forest swallowed her whole. For 3 weeks, she walked. No destination in mind, only the primal need to put distance between herself and the place that had discarded her. She slept in hollow trees, foraged what she could, avoided the territories of other packs who would smell the rejection on her like rot. On the 22nd night, she collapsed beside a frozen stream, too exhausted to continue. That was when the dreams began. A woman's voice, ancient and layered with power, whispered through the dark. You are not what they believe you to be. She woke with her hands glowing faintly silver, the light pulsing in time with her heartbeat. The suppressant vial in her satchel had shattered. And for the first time in her life, she felt the stirring of something beneath her skin. Something that had teeth. The cabin found her, not the other way around. She had been following the stream north, moving on instinct alone, when the structure appeared through the trees. Old, weathered, but intact. No scent markers. No signs of habitation. Just a single-room shelter with a stone hearth and a door that opened at her touch. Inside, she found supplies. Dried meat. Blankets. Candles. And on the rough-hewn table, a leather-bound journal with her name written on the first page in handwriting she recognized. Her mentors. If you are reading this, the bond has formed and been broken. Do not mourn it. The moon does not err, she tests. You were never meant to remain with the Crescent Moon Pack. You were meant to remember what you are. Her hands shook as she turned the pages. The journal detailed everything. The truth her mentor had concealed for 2 decades. Her mother had been a daughter of the Eclipse bloodline, an ancient royal line believed extinct after the Purge Wars. Her father had been the Eclipse Alpha's heir, murdered alongside the rest of his family when rival packs united to destroy what they feared. Only 2 survived. A pregnant woman who fled into human lands, and the healer who helped her give birth before she died. The mentor had hidden her. Suppressed her wolf with tonics. Taught her to blend, to serve, to survive. All while waiting for the moon to reveal her purpose. The rejection has broken the suppression spell, the journal read. Your wolf will emerge. It will not be gentle. You must learn control, or the power will consume you. She read until the candles burned low, until her eyes ached and her mind reeled. The Eclipse bloodline had been feared because their wolves were not ordinary. They did not simply shift, they commanded. Their power bent other wolves to their will, their presence alone enough to force submission. They were born alphas, every one of them, and the royal line had carried the moon's blessing in their blood. The packs had called it tyranny. The moon had called it order. And now, the last Eclipse heir sat alone in a forgotten cabin, holding a journal that promised power and warned of danger in equal measure. She pressed her palms flat against the table, feeling the hum of energy beneath her skin. Her mentor had written one final line at the journal's end. You are not prey. You never were. It is time to stop running. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, something in her chest growled back. The first shift came without warning. She had been splitting wood behind the cabin, focused on the rhythm of the axe, when pain exploded through her spine. Not the dull ache of exhaustion, but a searing, bone-deep agony that drove her to her knees. The axe fell from her hands. Her scream tore through the silent forest, raw and inhuman. Bones snapped. Reformed. Her skin rippled, fur erupting in silver-white waves that gleamed even in the shadow of the trees. Her senses sharpened until the world became overwhelming, every sound magnified, every scent a story, every shift in air pressure a warning. When it was over, she stood on 4 legs, panting, her mind fractured between human thought and animal instinct. The wolf was larger than any she had seen before. Larger even than the alpha who had rejected her. Her paws left deep impressions in the snow, and when she moved, power coiled in every muscle, restrained but present. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt complete. For hours, she ran. Not fleeing, but claiming. The forest opened before her, prey scattering at her approach, smaller predators retreating without challenge. Her wolf knew this was her territory now, understood it in a way her human mind had not yet accepted. When she finally shifted back, naked and shivering in the snow, she felt the ghost of her wolf lingering beneath her skin. Not separate. Not other. Simply another facet of what she was. The journal had been right. Her wolf was not gentle. But it was hers. She returned to the cabin and dressed with trembling hands, her body aching but stronger than before. The bond that had connected her to the alpha was gone, leaving no trace, no phantom pain. Good. She did not want it back. She wanted something else now. Over the following weeks, she trained. Shifted until the transformation came smoothly. Hunted until her wolf moved with lethal precision. Practiced control until she could hold her human form even when instinct screamed to let the beast free. The journal became her guide. It detailed techniques the Eclipse bloodline had used to hone their power, exercises meant to strengthen the bond between human and wolf until they moved as one. She followed every instruction. And with each passing day, the girl who had been rejected, exiled, and discarded burned away. What remained was colder. Sharper. Unforgiving. The elder found her on the first full moon after her awakening. She had been running patrol around the cabin's perimeter when a scent stopped her cold. Old. Powerful. Unfamiliar. But not threatening. A woman stepped from the trees, ancient beyond measure, her silver hair unbound and eyes that glowed faintly gold. Eclipse child, the elder said, voice resonant with authority. The moon has been waiting for you. She shifted back to human form, instinct telling her this was not a fight she could win. Who are you? I am what remains of the old council. The one that served your bloodline before the purge. The elder moved closer, studying her with unsettling intensity. Your mentor sent word before she disappeared. She said the suppression had broken and the heir had awakened. Why are you here? To finish what she started. The elder gestured toward the cabin. You have power, but you do not yet understand what you are. The Eclipse bloodline did not rule through strength alone. They ruled through something far more dangerous. Inside, the elder spread a collection of scrolls across the table, each one inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift in the candlelight. Your ancestors were not just alphas, the elder explained. They were moon-blessed. Their commands could not be refused. Their presence could force even the strongest wolf to submit. And their blood, she paused, meeting her gaze. Their blood could break or forge bonds at will. The implications settled like stones in her stomach. The alpha who rejected you, the elder continued, did so because the council feared what you might become. They sensed something in you, even suppressed, that threatened their power structure. They didn't know what I was. They knew enough. The elder's smile was grim. And now that you've awakened, every pack within 1,000 miles will feel it eventually. The Eclipse bloodline carried a signature in their power, a resonance that other wolves recognize on an instinctual level. She thought of the alpha's face when she walked away. The confusion. The flicker of unease. He had felt it even then. What do you want from me? She asked. Nothing. The elder said. I am here to offer you a choice. You can remain hidden, suppress your power again, live quietly in exile. Or, her eyes gleamed. You can learn to wield what you are. Reclaim what was stolen from your bloodline. Make them remember why the eclipse name was feared. She looked down at her hands, remembering how they had glowed silver in the moonlight. Remembering the Alpha's cold rejection. Remembering the fire that consumed her home. Teach me, she said. The elder's smile sharpened. Then we begin at dawn. The training was not kind. For 3 months, the elder pushed her beyond every limit she thought she had. They worked in isolation, far from any pack's territory, in a valley where the moon's light seemed to pool like liquid silver. She learned to channel her authority. Not the brute dominance of an ordinary alpha, but the eclipse command that resonated in the blood of every wolf who heard it. A single word, spoken with intent, could bring a rogue to his knees. A glance could silence a room. She learned to sense bonds. The threads that connected mates, pack members, alpha to subordinate. With focus, she could see them, gossamer strands of energy woven between souls. And with practice, she learned to pluck them like harp strings. The eclipse bloodline could sever bonds, the elder explained during one session. Not through rejection, as your alpha did, but through absolute authority. They could dissolve a mate connection, break a pack tie, even strip an alpha of his wolves. That's why they were killed. Yes. The elder's expression was grave. Power without limit breeds fear. Your ancestors forgot that restraint is what separates rulers from tyrants. Do not repeat their mistakes. She nodded, but part of her, the part that still remembered the humiliation, the fire, the exile, whispered that perhaps tyranny had its place. By the end of the 3rd month, she could shift in seconds. Could hold her wolf form for days without exhaustion. Could project her authority across 100 yards, making lesser wolves freeze mid-step. The elder watched her demonstration with approval. You are ready, she said. The question now is, what will you do with this power? She stood at the valley's edge, looking south toward the territories she had fled. Toward the crescent moon pack. Toward the alpha who had cast her aside. I'm going back, she said quietly. The elder did not argue. Then go as what you are. Not as the girl who begged for acceptance. Her voice hardened. Go as the eclipse heir. Make them remember why your bloodline ruled. She shifted, her wolf now a flawless extension of her will, and howled. The sound echoed across the valley, carrying a resonance that every wolf within 50 miles would feel in their bones. A declaration. A warning. The exile was over. If you want to see what happens when she returns to the pack that rejected her, keep listening. She did not announce her return. She simply appeared at the crescent moon border on the night of the alpha's mating ceremony. The celebration was in full swing. Hundreds of wolves gathered under the full moon to witness the bond between their alpha and his chosen mate be sealed before the pack. Music drifted through the trees. Laughter. The scent of roasted meat and honey wine. She crossed the border unmarked, her presence cloaked by sheer will until she chose to reveal it. When she stepped into the firelight, the music stopped. Wolves froze mid-conversation, goblets halfway to lips, instinct screaming warnings they did not yet understand. Every head turned toward her, drawn by a pull they could not name. She had changed. Gone was the uncertain girl in simple clothes who had accepted exile without protest. In her place stood a woman draped in dark leather, silver hair unbound and eyes that glowed faintly in the firelight. She moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate, commanding. The alpha stood at the center of the ceremonial circle, his chosen mate beside him, both dressed in white and silver. His expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something darker. Fear. You, he said, the word barely above a whisper. Me, she agreed, her voice carrying effortlessly across the silent crowd. His chosen mate stepped closer to him, sensing the threat. Who is this? The alpha did not answer. He was too busy staring at her, at the way power radiated from her frame like heat from a forge. The bond he had severed was still gone, but something else replaced it. Something that made his wolf cower. You were exiled, he said, forcing authority into his tone. You have no right to be here. Exiled. She tilted her head, a small, cold smile playing at her lips. No, Alpha. I was dismissed. There's a difference. She took another step forward, and the wolves between her and the alpha parted without conscious thought. Even the pack's strongest enforcers moved aside, their bodies obeying an authority older than pack law. I came to witness your mating ceremony, she continued, her gaze sliding to his chosen mate. To see what you chose over the moon's will. The chosen mate bristled. The alpha made the right choice. You are nothing. Kneel. The command was not shouted. It was spoken quietly, almost gently. But it carried the full weight of the eclipse authority, and the chosen mate's legs buckled before she could stop herself. She dropped to her knees in the dirt, eyes wide with shock and terror. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The alpha snarled, stepping forward. How dare you? I dare, she interrupted, because I am what you feared I would become. She met his gaze, unflinching. You rejected me because your council sensed power they could not control. Because you were afraid the moon chose someone stronger than you. You were human, he spat. I was suppressed. She raised her hand, and silver light bloomed around her fingers. But that's over now. The wolves closest to her backed away, recognition finally dawning. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Eclipse. The royal bloodline. Impossible. The alpha's face drained of color. You're lying. Am I? She let her power unfurl, just enough for every wolf present to feel the weight of it pressing against their instincts. Ask your wolf who I am. Ask your council why they tested my blood so thoroughly. Ask them what they were looking for. Silence. The chosen mate was still on her knees, trembling, unable to rise. Release her, the alpha demanded. No. His snarl deepened. I am alpha here. You will obey. You are alpha of this pack, she corrected, taking another step forward. I am eclipse. Your authority ends where mine begins. She let the full force of her presence wash over him, and watched as his wolf, proud, dominant, undefeated, bowed its head in submission. The alpha's knees bent. Just slightly. Just enough. Stop, he ground out, fighting the instinct with everything he had. She smiled. This is what you rejected, alpha. Not weakness. Not mortality. She gestured to the crowd, to the wolves who watched with awe and terror in equal measure. You rejected a queen. She turned then, releasing her hold on the chosen mate, who collapsed forward with a sob. Enjoy your ceremony, she said, walking back toward the shadows. I simply wanted you to know, I'm not hiding anymore. She disappeared into the forest, leaving chaos in her wake. But not before every wolf in that clearing felt the truth settle into their bones. The eclipse bloodline had returned. And she had not come back to beg. The alpha summoned his council before dawn. She knew because she was listening from the forest beyond his walls, her heightened senses picking up every word carried on the wind. How is this possible? One council member demanded. We tested her. She was human. The eclipse bloodline was extinct, another insisted. Dead for 20 years. Clearly not dead enough, a third voice muttered. The alpha's voice cut through the argument. I want answers. Find the healer who raised her. Find out how this was hidden. And find out, he paused. Find out if the bond can be reinstated. Silence. Then, cautiously, you rejected her, alpha. Publicly. The moon does not offer second chances. The moon gave me a mate I couldn't use, he snapped. Now she returns as something that could destroy this pack or elevate it beyond anything we've achieved. I will not let that power slip away because of pride. She smiled in the darkness. He wanted her back now. Not because the moon had chosen her. Not because he regretted the rejection. But because she had become useful. Predictable. Over the following days, she made herself visible. Not within Packlands, she had no interest in triggering a direct confrontation yet, but along the borders, in neutral territories where wolves from multiple packs crossed paths. Word spread quickly. The eclipse heir had awakened. She moved alone, challenged no one, but her presence was impossible to ignore. Wolves who encountered her reported the same thing, an authority so profound it made even alphas hesitate before speaking. Smaller packs began to whisper. If the eclipse bloodline had returned, did that mean the old laws would be reinstated? Would she try to reclaim the territories her ancestors once ruled? The alpha's position grew precarious. His chosen mate, humiliated before the pack, refused to complete the mating ceremony until he dealt with the eclipse threat. His enforcers grew uneasy, torn between loyalty to their alpha and the instinct that screamed to submit to a power older than their pack's existence. On the 7th night after her return, the alpha came to find her. She was waiting at the border, seated on a fallen log, silver moonlight pooling around her like a cloak. He approached alone, though she could sense his enforcers hidden in the trees. "Back up. In case this went poorly. You wanted my attention," she said without looking up. "You have it. We need to talk." "No." She met his gaze. "You need to talk. I'm simply deciding whether to listen." His jaw tightened, but he kept his tone measured. "You've made your point. The pack knows what you are. Now what? Do you plan to challenge me? To take my territory? Do you want me to? I want to know what you're after." She stood, brushing dirt from her leathers. "You rejected me because I was worthless. Now you're here because I'm not. Tell me, Alpha, which version of me was the mistake?" He said nothing. "You don't get to have it both ways," she continued, circling him slowly. "You don't get to cast me aside and then demand I serve your ambitions when it suits you." "The bond was a mistake," he said. "I see that now. But it can be fixed. The moon. The moon has already judged you." Her voice turned cold. "And found you wanting." His wolf snarled, surfacing in his eyes. "Careful, Eclipse. Power alone doesn't make you untouchable. Doesn't it?" She let her authority flare, and his enforcers in the trees whimpered, unable to hide any longer. The alpha held his ground, but barely. "Leave my territory," he said through gritted teeth. "Or I will be forced to act." She smiled. "Make me." He lunged. And she didn't move. The alpha's attack never landed. 3 feet from her, his wolf balked. Not because she commanded it, but because his instincts overrode his fury. To strike an eclipse heir was to invite retribution not just from her, but from the moon itself. He stumbled, catching himself, confusion and rage warring across his face. "You can't," he whispered. "I didn't have to." She stepped closer, unafraid. "Your wolf knows what you refuse to accept. I am not prey. I never was." Behind him, his enforcers emerged from the trees, but none moved to assist. They watched, torn and uncertain, as their alpha stood frozen before a woman he had once discarded. "This is impossible," he said. "You were nothing. You had no wolf, no power, no. I had all of it." Her voice was quiet, deadly. It was simply hidden. "And you," she tilted her head. "You were too blind to see it." His chosen mate appeared at the tree line, drawn by the commotion. When she saw them standing so close, her face twisted with fury. "You dare return here," she spat. "He rejected you. The bond is broken. You have no claim." "I'm not here for the bond," she replied, not looking away from the alpha. "I'm here to remind him what he lost." The chosen mate stalked forward. "You lost, human. He chose me." "Did he?" She finally turned her attention to the other woman. "Or did his council choose you because you were safe? Pure-blooded. Controllable. Everything I wasn't." The chosen mate's hand moved toward the dagger at her belt. "Don't," the alpha warned. Too late. The blade flashed in the moonlight, arcing toward her throat. She caught the chosen mate's wrist without looking, her grip like iron. The knife clattered to the ground. "Kneel," she said again, the command laced with eclipse authority. The chosen mate's legs buckled instantly, and this time, she couldn't rise even when released. "Stop this," the alpha demanded. "Release her." "Why?" She met his gaze. "You wanted to see my power. Here it is. Unchecked. Uncontrolled. Exactly what you feared." She released the chosen mate, who collapsed forward, gasping. "You've made your point," the alpha said. "Now leave." "I will." She turned toward the forest. "But understand this, I am not your enemy unless you make me one. I have no interest in your pack or your territory. I simply wanted you to live with the knowledge that you rejected a queen and kept a pawn. She took 3 steps before his voice stopped her. The mate bond, he said quietly. Can it be restored? She looked back over her shoulder. Even if it could, she said, why would I want it? She disappeared into the shadows, leaving him standing at the border with his chosen mate trembling at his feet and his enforcers silent with doubt. The Alpha King who had rejected her now stood diminished. And they both knew it. The challenge came 2 weeks later. Not from the Alpha, but from his chosen mate. It was delivered formally, through a messenger who approached her cabin at dawn. A written demand for a dominance trial, sanctioned by pack law, to determine who held rightful claim to the Alpha's bond. She read the letter once, then fed it to the fire. Tell her I accept, she said. The messenger's eyes widened. You understand what this means? A dominance trial ends in submission or death. I understand perfectly. The trial was set for the next full moon, giving both parties time to prepare. But she did not train. She had no need. The chosen mate was pure-blooded and well-trained, but she had never faced an eclipse. The day of the trial, the entire pack gathered at the ceremonial grounds. Neutral wolves from neighboring territories came to witness, drawn by rumors of what was about to unfold. The Alpha stood at the center of the circle, his expression unreadable. His chosen mate entered from the east, dressed in fighting leathers, a silver blade strapped to her thigh. The crowd cheered for her, their future Luna, defending her claim. She entered from the west. The cheers died instantly. She wore no weapons. No armor. Just simple black clothing that left her arms bare, revealing the faint silver marks that had begun to appear along her skin, ancient eclipse symbols that surfaced when their power reached its peak. The chosen mate's confidence faltered. This is a trial by dominance, the pack's head enforcer announced. The challenger has invoked her right to contest the Alpha's chosen mate. The trial ends when one party submits or dies. Are both parties willing? Yes, the chosen mate said immediately. She simply nodded. Begin. The chosen mate moved first, fast and brutal. Blade singing as it cut the air. She sidestepped without effort, not even raising her hands. Fight me, the chosen mate snarled, circling. I am. Another strike. Another miss. Frustration bled into the chosen mate's movements, making them sloppy. She lunged, overextended, and left herself open. She caught her wrist, twisted, and sent the blade skittering across the ground. The chosen mate shifted mid-fall, fur erupting as her wolf took over. The crowd gasped. Shifting during a dominance trial was allowed, but risky. It meant the fight would be decided by the wolf, and wolves fought to kill. The chosen mate's wolf was impressive, large, well-muscled, golden-furred. She did not shift. She didn't need to. The wolf lunged, jaws snapping toward her throat. She raised one hand, and the eclipse authority slammed outward like a physical wave. The wolf's momentum stopped mid-air. She hung suspended for a heartbeat, then crashed to the ground, legs splaying as her body was forced into submission. The chosen mate tried to rise, snarling, fighting the instinct with everything she had. Kneel, she commanded. The wolf's legs folded. You cannot defeat me, she said quietly, crouching to meet the wolf's terrified eyes. Not with strength. Not with speed. Not with anything your pack taught you. I am Eclipse. Your wolf knows this. Stop fighting and submit. The wolf whimpered, a sound of pure anguish. Submit, she repeated. The chosen mate's wolf lowered her head, throat exposed, the ultimate gesture of surrender. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in shocked murmurs. She rose, stepping back, releasing her hold. The chosen mate shifted back to human form, naked and shaking, tears streaming down her face. I submit, she whispered. The head enforcer stepped forward. The trial is concluded. The challenger has won. She looked at the Alpha, whose face had gone ashen. I don't want your bond, she said, loud enough for every wolf to hear. I don't want your pack. I simply wanted to prove that I could take it if I chose to. She turned to leave, and the crowd parted without hesitation. Wait, the Alpha called. She stopped but did not turn. What do you want? His voice cracked. You've humiliated us. Proven your power. What more could you possibly want? She looked back, and for the first time, let him see the full weight of what his rejection had cost. I want you to live with the knowledge, she said, that the mate the moon gave you would have been loyal, devoted, and powerful beyond measure. And you threw her away because you were afraid. She left the ceremonial grounds in silence. Behind her, the Alpha King stood alone, his chosen mate sobbing on the ground, his pack fractured by doubt. And she felt nothing but cold, satisfied closure. 3 months after the trial, word reached her that the Crescent Moon pack was falling apart. The Alpha's authority had crumbled. Wolves questioned his every decision, pointing to the mate he rejected as proof of his poor judgment. His chosen mate had left, unable to endure the whispers and stares. Rival packs circled his borders, sensing weakness. She heard the reports from travelers passing through neutral territory and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No pity. Just the distant acknowledgement of a debt settled. She had built a new life in the months since the trial. The Elder had introduced her to other wolves, lone survivors of old bloodlines, outcasts, and wanderers who recognized her authority and chose to follow not because they had to, but because they wanted to. A small pack formed around her. Not bound by traditional hierarchy, but by mutual respect and shared purpose. She did not call herself Alpha. She did not need to. On the first snow of winter, a messenger arrived at her territory's border. Not from the Crescent Moon pack, but from the Assembly, the Council of Alphas that governed interpack law. They requested her presence. She went, curious. The Assembly Hall was ancient. Carved from stone and lit by torchlight. A dozen alphas sat in a half-circle, representing the most powerful packs in the region. At the center, looking diminished and exhausted, sat the alpha who had rejected her. Eclipse Heir, the head of the assembly, greeted her. We have called you here to address a matter of territory and lineage. She inclined her head, waiting. The Crescent Moon pack has petitioned for mediation, the head continued. They claim you have destabilized their authority and seek reparations. She looked at the alpha, who could not meet her gaze. I have claimed no territory, she said. Challenged no borders. I simply existed, and his pack fractured under the weight of his poor choices. She humiliated me, the alpha said quietly. Broke my mate bond. Turned my wolves against me. I won a lawful trial, she corrected. And I rejected the bond you offered afterward. Your wolves turned against you because they lost faith in your judgment, not because I commanded it. The assembly alphas murmured among themselves. What do you seek, Eclipse Heir? The head asked. She considered carefully. Recognition, she said finally. Not as a threat. Not as a forgotten bloodline clawing for relevance. But as what I am, the last Eclipse Heir, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. And if we grant this, then I will take my place among you as an equal. I will govern my pack, respect your borders, and expect the same in return. She glanced at the Crescent Moon Alpha. And I will consider old grievances settled. The head of the assembly studied her for a long moment. The Eclipse bloodline ruled before the purge, he said. Their return changes the balance of power. It does, she agreed. But I am not my ancestors. I do not seek conquest. I seek peace. But, her voice hardened. I will not be dismissed, exiled, or cast aside ever again. The assembly deliberated for less than an hour. When they emerged, the decision was unanimous. She was granted recognition as the Eclipse Alpha, with territory rights and a seat on the assembly. The Crescent Moon Alpha was censured for his handling of the mate bond and given a choice: accept a reduction in territory, or face a formal challenge from another pack. He chose the reduction. As she left the hall, the Alpha caught her at the door. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw a man broken not by her power, but by his own fear. I know, she said. Can you forgive me? She smiled, sad and distant. I don't need to, she said. You were the moon's test, not my fate. And I passed. She walked away, leaving him standing alone in the torchlight. Outside, her pack waited, small, loyal, and hers by choice. She had not sought revenge. She had simply refused to disappear. And in the end, that had been enough. The girl who was rejected had become a queen. Not because she destroyed her enemies, but because she rose above them. And the alpha who cast her aside would live with that knowledge for the rest of his days. The Eclipse heir has claimed her throne. If you want to hear what happens when old enemies return and new alliances are tested, subscribe for the next chapter in her saga.